Ogden Union Station is located on 2501 Wall Avenue, Ogden, Utah. The Union Station is open 10 to 5 Mondays through Saturdays. And also the station has a railroad museum called the Utah State Railroad Museum with a train display mostly outdoors. Also, the Union Station was built in 1924 and the current depot opened in 1924. On March 8, 1869, Union Pacific came to Ogden on its way to Promontory, Utah to meet the Central Pacific, which was leading the transcontinental railroad up there. Also, this station was built 55 years later. The first station was built in 1869. It was a two-story wooden frame building built on a mudflat on the banks of the Weber River. The building soon became inadequate, being also the facility for the narrow gauge Utah Central Railroad, which was later the Oregon Short Line, and the narrow gauge Rio Grande Western, which was later the Denver and Rio Grande Western. In 1923, a hotel room in the depot caught fire, which quickly spread throughout the building. Did not start until a stone from the clock tower fell and struck a railroad clerk, killing him instantly. Originally, the Ogden Union Railway and Depot planned on rebuilding the station in its original design, but the accident reversed this decision and a new design was proposed by John and Donald Parkinson, architects of the Caliente Depot in Nevada and the Kelso Depot in California. Also, freight and passenger services in Ogden, Utah were provided by the Union Pacific, Utah Central, Utah Northern, and the Oregon Short Line and Utah Northern Railroads. Name trains that served Ogden included the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy's Denver Zephyr, the Denver and Rio Grande's Zephyr, and Amtrak's Pioneer and Desert Wind. Also, Amtrak would as well stop here until 1977. It discontinued passenger service, and also the California Zephyr still stops in Salt Lake City, Utah on its run from Chicago, Illinois to Emeryville, California. And also the Utah Transit Authority commuter train also passes by the place as well, and the station for boarding is just north of the Union Station. Today, the Ogden Union Station has a numerous of museums, even a railroad museum called the Utah State Railroad Museum, and sometimes they bring the Union Pacific steam trains for display from Cheyenne, Wyoming, and even train shows are hosted at this station as well, and where they also set up model trains layout for displays well. The ones that are temporary display, and also there is one in the railroad exhibit hall in the very end of the hall set up as well. Also outside the Spencer S. and Hope Fox Pavilion is where you can find a lot of pieces of equipment on display, and David Essel's, father of Spencer Stoddard Essel's, after whom the center is partly named, was a 19th century banker and industrialist involved in lumber milling and railroad construction. He and his associates built part of the Western Pacific's Los Angeles and Salt Lake line, as well as the Mount Hood Railroad and Sumter Valley Railroad, which still operates as a heritage railroad. Union Pacific 4436 was built by Baldwin in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1918 and is the 48200th steam locomotive built by that factory and is an 0606 wheeler type steam locomotive and is a 4421 class steam locomotive. Union Pacific 4436 was used to work at various locations in Nebraska until World War II. Then it was moved to the Portland, Oregon, and at that time the locomotive was converted to an oil burner, and its original slope back tender was replaced by a Vanderbilt tender. Then around 1947 Union Pacific 4436 was moved to Evanston, Wyoming. It was still there as late as October 1957, and many have been the last steam locomotive assigned to Evanston, Wyoming, and during the times with Union Pacific 4436 it was used as a shunter locomotive. Then in 1958 Union Pacific 4436 was retired and donated to the city of Ogden, Utah, and put on display in Affleck Park and was parked nose to nose with Southern Pacific 1297, which is also an 060. Then in 1993 Union Pacific 4436 was moved to Ogden's Union Station in Ogden, Utah with Southern Pacific 1297, which later on went to Farmington, New Mexico in 2002, and 4436 stayed here and has been here for a long time. Also, Union Pacific 4436 is one of 6 surviving Union Pacific 060s left in the world today, and 4436 can be found here at Ogden's Union Station in Ogden, Utah, where it is on display, and you'll find it on the curve next to this station, and also it is seen on display, and you can climb around the locomotive and visit the cab, but please be aware of a sign saying play safely, which you should be very careful when you climb around the locomotive, and you could even visit the cab and even sit where the engineer and fireman used to sit as well. Union Pacific 25176 was built in 1944 and is a CA4 class steel caboose. This caboose was one of the many steel Union Pacific cabooses used behind freight trains on the Union Pacific line, and it was used behind freight trains in the past. Also, Union Pacific 25176 has on the sides in the white rectangle saying in words, "What do? We work for you." Union Pacific 25176 was then renumbered as Union Pacific 3876 in 1959, then went back to its original number. Then in 1987, Union Pacific 25176 was then retired and then came to be part of the Ogden Union Station in Ogden, Utah, where it is on display today as well.
What you see right behind me is Denver and Rio Grande, 1457.
Denver and Rio Grande 01457 was built by the Denver and Rio Grande Grand's Burnham shops in Denver, Colorado, 1940s, and is a steel caboose. Denver and Rio Grande 01457 was used for the standard gauge Denver and Rio Grande Railroad on the back of freight trains many years ago, and also was used as the train crew's office as well. Then later on, this caboose was retired and then came to be part of the Ogden Union Station in Ogden, Utah, where it is on display today, and it is even used as a birthday caboose as well. Paris Lines in Mediterranean 128854 was built by Chantiers de la Burerie in Lines, France in 1880 and is a four-wheel boxcar and is also known as the Mercy Train Gratitude boxcar and is one of 49 boxcars shipped from France to USA, and also this boxcar is one of 49 given to the USA from France as a gift of thank you to the goodwill of the American public and wing World War II. Americans donated goods and materials to fill 250 railroad cars, which were then delivered to war. There may be a lot of Mercy boxcars still out scattered in the USA and wherever they are located in states that may still be around: Alabama, Arkansas, California, Colorado, that one is currently missing, Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Hawaii, Idaho, Illinois, that one is currently missing, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maine, Maryland, Michigan, Minnesota, Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, Nevada, New Hampshire, New Mexico, New York, North Carolina, North Dakota, Ohio, Oklahoma, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, right here, Vermont, Virginia, Washington, West Virginia, Wisconsin, and Wyoming, and those are 45 that are still around, and 2 of them are missing somewhere, like I've mentioned. Also, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Nebraska, and New Jersey's boxcars got destroyed by fire or have been scrapped. Also, 45 are preserved in the USA and 4 are gone. Kennecott Mining Corp. 423 was built by Pacific Car and Foundry near Seattle, Washington in 1937 and is an all-steel cupola caboose. Also, this caboose was probably built for the Utah Copper Company as Utah Copper Company 023 for use in the ore delivery department and also used as the train crew's office, and it was used for the Kennecott Mining Corp. As Kennecott Mining Corp. 423. Between 1950 and 1954, this caboose was rebuilt at the Utah Copper Car Shops in Magna, Utah. Then later on, Kennecott Copper Corp. 423 was then retired and then later came to be part of the Ogden Union Station in Ogden, Utah, and when it was first donated, someone renumbered it as Kennecott Copper Corp. 429, a car that was never on the Kennecott roster, though. Also, there is a mystery of how it got put in here, and even some walls have been cut, and you could even go inside it. And also, I think I even keep wondering how they got this caboose in the building as well.
You can see this right here behind me. It is your station here in Ogden. Okay, going to show you all the exhibits inside the exhibit gallery of the railroad. So I'll get behind the camera and show you all around. So here we go. Okay, so we're entering the exhibits. These are one of the original to the loosened cutoff. which they brought here for display. There's a map of the 150th anniversary of the Transcontinental Railroad. And here's, here's of how they built the railroad. It looks like a velocipede, of course. And in that safe has the golden spike. Yep. And here's a mannequin. Here's of what the railroad ties used to look like in the older days. And here's a Nacho model of a dome. A dome car. Now we're entering another exhibit gallery. Here's the caboose that was cut out, and that's a theater room right there, just so you all know. And here's a map of the United States, different time zones, as you could tell. Here's our time zone, which is mountain time. Oh yeah, I took this around 5 today. Here we are at the end. Here's an old switchboard and a lot of railroad stuff and such. Oh, and here's celebrating the Golden Spike, 100 years, the centennial. And look at those. There's the Jupiter, the Golden Spike, and the 119. And here's a schedule board as well. Some luggages right here. Okay, gonna show you all the railroad based on the Central Pacific route. Mostly the Southern Pacific body, so I'll get behind the camera and show you around. Here we go. So we're in the model railroad. Here's the California side. And look at that trestle. And let's look at this one. Here's steam engine.
All right, 5:30. Kyle, 5:30.
Excuse me. Here's what the loose-end cutoff looks like when it was built. The original loose-end cutoff, but this is what it was till it became a stone causeway. Here's the Unita. Corinne, it looks like.
Yeah, over in the other area there is.
Here's a gas turbine of what the inside looks like. Here we are, which is the Ogden Union Station. That's what the 119 was like when it was on a flat car. Wish they could have featured the Jupiter, which was for the Centennial Expo. There's a model of the big boy locomotive. Oh, and here's some pictures. One of 3985, and here's one of 4024. 4002. Here's more of Utah. This is all what the original Transcontinental Railroad looks like. It's a high trestle bridge. Let's go out here so you can see the other part of it. Oh. So I'm gonna walk right here. And here's the 119. So press of this button. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For some reason it's not moving, but oh well. Yeah.
Union Pacific 1869 was built by Pullman Standard in 1942 and is a passenger car. This car was originally numbered as Union Pacific 5338 and was a chair car. This car was once used on passenger trains many years ago on the Union Pacific Railroad and also would be used for carrying passengers on board as well. In 1969, it was rebuilt and repainted for the Golden Spike Centennial Expo, marking the 100th anniversary of the completion of the first transcontinental railroad in 1869 when the Golden Spike was driven, and this car toured the Union Pacific system behind a special train of flat cars loaded with 1860s era equipment and was the only car to receive this paint scheme. Then, in the 1970s, it went to the Stewart Museum in Grand Island, Nebraska, and was on display there for a while. Then, in about the 1980s, it was part of the Fremont and Elkhorn Valley Railroad of Nebraska. Then, it was moved to Ogden, Utah, and also today it can be seen here at the Ogden Union Station in Ogden, Utah, where it is today. Union Pacific 5819 was built by American Car and Foundry in St. Charles, Missouri in 1949 and is a railway post office coach. Union Pacific 5819 was used for hauling mail in the past and even delivered mail many years ago, and including a section for baggage and express as well as a compartment for use of this postal service, and was used on the Oregon Short Line, which is a Union Pacific subsidiary between Ogden, Utah and Malott, Idaho. When Union Pacific lost its mail contracts, many of the old railway post office cars, including this one, were relegated to maintenance of way service, and this car was painted in the Union Pacific's maintenance of way green and renumbered as Union Pacific 903-680 for use as a tool car. Then, later on, this car was retired and it was part of a private collection in Spokane, Washington, till it was purchased by the Ogden Union Station in Ogden, Utah, and was moved by Union Pacific and arrived at this site in 2001, where it can be seen today, and the interior of it is only open for tours as well. Union Pacific 833 was built by Alco in Schenectady, New York in 1939 and is the 691/74th steam locomotive built by that factory and is a 484 Northern type steam locomotive and is an FEF 2 class steam locomotive. Union Pacific 833 was built to burn coal, but it was too expensive, but then 833 and all the other FEFs were converted to burn oil. Union Pacific 833 was used to haul freight on the Union Pacific Railroad and lived in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and even was used also as a passenger engine for the Union Pacific Railroad. Union Pacific 833 also was retired in 1962 and was then held for historic purposes until it was donated to Salt Lake City, Utah in 1972 and put on display in Pioneer Park. Then in 1999 was moved to Ogden, Utah to be displayed at the Union Station and was carried by truck to the pavilion from Salt Lake City to Ogden and put on the rails to its final resting spot. Also, Union Pacific 833 is one of 4 surviving Union Pacific 484s that survive today. 4 Union Pacific FEFs for 484 FEFs for short that remain today, and Union Pacific 833 can be seen here at Ogden Union Station in Ogden, Utah, where it is on display today. Union Pacific 6916 was built by Electromotor Division in LaGrange, Illinois in 1969 and is the 345/42nd diesel locomotive built by that factory and is a DDA 40X type diesel locomotive and also known as a Centennial. Union Pacific 6916 is the 17th DDA 40X, also known as Centennial, ever built for the Union Pacific Railroad and is one of 47 that were built. Also, Union Pacific 6916 worked as a freight locomotive on the Union Pacific Railroad. The name Centennial was used to mark the celebration of the 100th anniversary of the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad in May 1869 at Promontory, Utah. Then, in the 1980s, Union Pacific 6916 was later retired and then donated to the city of Ogden, Utah, and put on display at the Ogden Union Station in Ogden, Utah, where it is on display today. Also, 6916 is one of 13 surviving DDA 40X Centennials left in the world today and can be found here at the Ogden Union Station in Ogden, Utah, where it is today.
That's how it's done. What you see right behind me is Denver, Rio Grande 5371.
Denver and Rio Grande 5371 was built by Electromotive Division in LaGrange, Illinois in 1975 and is the 756-046th diesel locomotive built by that factory and is an SD40T-2 type diesel locomotive. Also, the SD40T-2s were built for only two railroads, which were the Southern Pacific and the Denver and Rio Grande. And the T designates the special tunnel motors design that allows for cooler running through the long tunnels in the Sierras and Rockies. Also, the majority, that 239, were used for the Southern Pacific and its subsidiary, the Cotton Belt. 73 were also bought by the Denver and Rio Grande and numbered from 5341 to 5413, which this one is one of them and has been used on the Denver and Rio Grande Railroad as well, hauling freight. This locomotive was the last Denver and Rio Grande locomotive in full Rio Grande paint operating on the system. It was also the last SD40T-2 in active service on any United States railroad and the last tunnel motor unpatched and unpainted since the merger with Union Pacific, and last ran on the former Rio Grande trackage between Provo, Utah and Grand Junction, Colorado. It went to North Platte in 2006 for its last triennial inspection. Also, this locomotive made its last revenue run on local LD P45 from Helper, Utah to East Carbon City, Utah. Then, in 2008, the locomotive was retired and was donated to the Ogden Union Station in Ogden, Utah, where it is today.
And that's how it's done.
Southern Pacific 7457 was built by Electromotive Division in LaGrange, Illinois in 1966 and is the three 1990 first diesel locomotive built by that factory and is an SD45 type diesel locomotive. This locomotive was originally numbered as Southern Pacific 8800, and it was the first of this model built for the Southern Pacific and one of a total of 356 SD45s the Southern Pacific Railroad owned, and the first order of SD45s were numbered from 8800 through 8844. Then the locomotive was renumbered as Southern Pacific 7457. Also, these locomotives ran between Ogden, Utah and the West Coast via Donner Pass and had been used for hauling freight on the Southern Pacific Railroad as well. Then later on, Southern Pacific 7457 was retired and in 2002 was donated to the Ogden Union Station in Ogden, Utah, where it can be seen today.
What you see right behind me is Union Pacific 25766.
Union Pacific 25766 was built by Pacific Car and Foundry near Seattle, Washington in 1921 and is a wooden CA1 caboose. Originally was used for the Oregon and Northwestern Railroad as Oregon and Northwestern 2624 and used on the back of freight trains many years ago as the train crews office for the Oregon and Northwestern Railroad. Then in 1962 was renumbered as Union Pacific 25766 and then used on the Union Pacific Railroad and also used on the back of freight trains as well for the Union Pacific Railroad. Then in 1971, this caboose was retired and was restored by the Union Pacific Railroad and then was donated to the Ogden Union Station in Ogden, Utah, where it is on display today.
What you see right behind me is Union Pacific 2002.
Union Pacific 2002 was built in like the late 1900s and is the Olympic Torch car. This car was part of a special train Union Pacific produced for the 2002 Olympics with two SD70M type diesel locomotives, specially painted to match the car. This car was rebuilt in Kansas City, Missouri and outfitted with 7 250-gallon capacity propane tanks to keep the torch lit for 3 days. After the Olympics, Union Pacific donated it to the Ogden Union Station in Ogden, Utah, where it is today and under a long-term loan as well.
What you see right behind me is Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe 401.
Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe 401 was built by Alco in Schenectady, New York in 1959 and is the A3482nd diesel locomotive built by that factory and is an Alco RSD-15 type diesel locomotive. This locomotive was used for the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railroad and originally numbered as Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe 823. Then it was later renumbered as Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe 9823 and was used for carrying freight on the railroad for many years. Then was retired in 1975. It was then sold to Precision National, who sold it again to the Utah Railway, who simply blocked out the Santa Fe lettering and gave it the number as Utah Railway 401 without a complete repaint. In 1982, this locomotive was retired and then sold it for scrap in 1983 to Industrial Salvage and Metals and it was traded to the Promontory Chapter National Railway Historical Society in return for 4 Kennecott locomotives. The Promontory Chapter sold it to the Wyoming and Colorado Railway, who leased it to Broken Arrow Inc., where it operated out of Tooele and Clive, Utah, switching the rotary dumper at the hazardous waste facility. In 1992, it was sold to Herzog, but left in Clive, Utah until was donated to the Ogden Union Station in Ogden, Utah, where it can be seen today. And also, it never had the number 401 when it was used on the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railroad.
What you see right behind me is United States Air Force 7727.
United States Air Force 7727 was built by Alco in Schenectady, New York in 1941 and is the 694-69th diesel locomotive built by that factory and is an Alco S1 type diesel locomotive. This locomotive was used for the United States Army. It was later transferred to the Air Force and assigned to Hill Air Force Base and worked most of its life at the Hill Air Force Base in Utah. Then later on, United States Army, United States Air Force 7727 was retired and in 1990 was donated to the Ogden Union Station in Ogden, Utah, where it is on display today.
What you see right behind me is Kennecott Mining Corp 425.
Kennecott Mining Company 425 was built by Pacific Car and Foundry near Seattle, Washington in 1947 and is an all-steel cupola caboose. Also, this caboose was probably built for the Utah Copper Company's Utah Copper Company 025 for use in the ore delivery department and also used as the train crew's office, and it was used for the Kennecott Copper Corp as Kennecott Copper Corp 425. Between 1950 and 1954, this caboose was rebuilt at the Utah Copper Car Shops in Magna, Utah. Then, later on, this caboose was retired and came to be part of the Ogden Union Station in Ogden, Utah, where it is today, and seen as Kennecott Mining Company 425 as well.
What you see right behind me is United States Air Force
1236. 1236 was built by General Electric in Schenectady, New York in 1953 and is the 318-74th diesel locomotive built by that factory and is a 44-ton center cab type diesel locomotive. This locomotive was assigned to Hill Air Force Base and started work at the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. Then later on, this locomotive was retired and in 1990 was donated to the Ogden Union Station in Ogden, Utah, where it is today. Also, electrical parts from this locomotive have been purchased by the Cumbres and Toltec Scenic Railroad in Chama, New Mexico as well. And this locomotive can be seen here preserved at the Ogden Union Station in Ogden, Utah, where it is today.
What you see right behind me is Department of Defense Troop Support and Aviation Material RE-31.
Department of Defense Troop Support and Aviation Material RE-31 was built by Pullman in the 1900s and is a simulator car. This car was originally used for the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad and built as a heavyweight baggage car for the railroad as well. Then it was sold to United States Air Force, rebuilt into a simulator car and given the number and road name it has. Then this car was painted blue with the strategic air command shield, and the radar cars white and or silver with the strategic air command shield. And this car, along with other cars like it, would travel across the country to various bases and training locations, including Utah. Hill Air Force Base was the designated repair location, and the trains would rotate through there every 2 years for work when the scoring trains were phased out with the bombers that they were designed for during the Vietnam War. They were sent to Hill for storage. In 1991, this car was donated to the Ogden Union Station in Ogden, Utah by the United States Air Force, where it can be seen today.
What you see right behind me is United States Army 35826.
United States Army 35826 was built by Pressed Steel Car Company, New Jersey in 1953 and is a flat car. This flat car would be used for the United States Army and would carry Army vehicles such as Army trucks, tanks, and whatever it could haul when used for the United States Army. Then later on, this car was retired and then came to be part of the Ogden Union Station in Ogden, Utah, where it is today, and also it is used as an idler for flat car for Union Pacific Crane X250 as well.
What you see right behind me is Union Pacific X250.
Union Pacific X250 was built by Industrial Brown Hoist in Bay City, Michigan in 1967 and is a 250-ton crane. It was originally used on the Missouri Pacific Railroad as Missouri Pacific X250 and was originally assigned to the North Little Rock, Arkansas, and was used for the Missouri Pacific Railroad many years ago, and would even be used for lifting and lowering things as it would be used for maintenance of way service on the Missouri Pacific Railroad. Then Then it was used on the Union Pacific Railroad as Union Pacific X250 as the Missouri Pacific merged. It was moved to Salt Lake City, Utah after the merger with the railroads and used on the Union Pacific for maintenance of ways well. Then in 1995 it was retired and was put in storage and was then sold to Durbano Metal Salvage in Ogden, Utah, and then Dennis Durbano donated this crane to the Ogden Union Station in Ogden, Utah, where it is today.
What you see right behind me is Southern Pacific 1555.
Southern Pacific 1555 was built by Pacific Car and Foundry in Renton, Washington in 1961 and is a C40-4 Class bay window caboose. Southern Pacific 1555 was used on freight trains many years ago on the Southern Pacific Railroad as the train crew's office. Then, later on, Southern Pacific 1555 was retired and came to be part of the Ogden Union Station in Ogden, Utah, where it is on display today. Union Pacific 26 was built by General Electric in Schenectady, New York in 1961 and is the 340/85th diesel locomotive built by that factory, and the B unit 26B is the 340/86th one as well, and is an 8500 HP gas turbine type diesel locomotive. This is the first generation of gas turbine locomotives powered by the same engines as airplanes. They were the most powerful locomotives to ever run, and the Union Pacific calculated a single unit could haul 734 freight cars, which was a train over 7 miles long at a steady 12 mile per hour. Once in operation, they quickly earned the nickname, which was the parody of the Big Boy locomotive. The nickname was known as Big Blows because of the deafening noise they made. The Union Pacific rostered the largest fleet of turbine-powered freight locomotives in the world. The 8500s had a GE 15-stage turbine powering a General Electric GT57 576C1 generator to drive 6 General Electric 752E3 traction motors. At one time, the Union Pacific claimed turbines hauled 10% of their entire freight. They were initially quite cost-effective, despite poor fuel economy, because they used residual fuel oils, bunker C oils from the petroleum industry, and also the units became too expensive to operate. The last gas turbine run was on 26th of December 1969, and all the 8500s were out of service by 1970. Then in 1971, Union Pacific 26 was sold for scrap to Continental Leasing Group and shipped to Intercontinental Engineering Company of Riverside, Missouri, and gutted before being donated to the Ogden Union Station in Ogden, Utah in 1987, and was then moved to this location at the Ogden Union Station in this spot where it is today. Also, Union Pacific 26 is one of 2 surviving gas turbines left in the world today, and Union Pacific 18 is the other one, and is located at the Illinois Railway Museum in Union, Illinois, and 26 can be found here at Ogden's Union Station in Ogden, Utah, where it is today.
What you see right behind me is the United States Army hospital car.
The United States Army hospital car was built by American Car and Foundry in St. Charles, Missouri in the 1950s and is a hospital car. Also, the original number of this car is unknown. It was built during World War II and to transport the homecoming injured of the war to the military hospitals scattered across the country. It may have been used for transportation of wounded to the hospital in Brigham City, Utah. This car was discovered in the surplus lot at Smith and Edwards and purchased by the Golden Spike Chapter Railway and Locomotive Historical Society, and restored the car at the former sugar factory. In 2001, it was then donated to the Ogden Union Station in Ogden, Utah, where it is today, and the interior of it is only open for tours as well.
You see right behind me is the United States Army 1216.
United States Army 1216 was built by the Davenport Locomotive Works in Davenport, Iowa in 1953 and is the 3364th diesel locomotive built by that factory and is a 44-ton center cab type diesel locomotive. This locomotive worked at the United States Army's Twin Cities Arsenal in New Brighton, Minnesota, then used at Hill Air Force Base near Ogden, Utah, as well as at the Tuele Army Base in Tuele, Utah. Then later on, this locomotive was retired and was donated to the Ogden Union Station in Ogden, Utah, where it can be seen today. And also, it had been spray painted with some graffiti, but eventually it got removed as well. Well, I hope you all enjoy learning about trains with me today in Matthew Lap Train Guy segment show. Also, I hope to see you all again in the next segment. So, this is Matthew Lap, host of Matthew Lap Train Guy segment show. Sign out until next time. All aboard.